translation, so hopefully you can hear me. We're not expecting a fire drill today, but if a fire alarm does ring, then everybody should convene outside, and the toilets are just outside here on the left-hand side as you leave the room. Hopefully you'll enjoy the session, and I look forward to having chats with you later on in the day. First of all, can we just welcome the leader of Gwynedd Council, Dyfrig Shenkin. Thank you very much, Jeanette, and a warm welcome to all of you to the meeting today. There's obviously great interest in our plan, and it's great to see this room full, and a warm welcome to those of you who are joining us online via Zoom as well. It's our pleasure to launch the Gwynedd and Eryri Sustainable Visitor Economy Strategic Plan. It's a bit of a long title. I don't know if we might summarise it a bit for the future, but this is a significant step forward following several years of discussion and joint planning and consulting quietly with elected members, communities, businesses and other key partners in developing it. The visitor economy is very important in Gwynedd and of course to the park as well. And I'm amazed at the beauty of the area. I was walking over the Carb in Porthmadog a few weeks back on a beautiful day, and I looked towards Eryri across the Traeth Mawr beach, and I was reflecting and thought to myself, there's nowhere that's more beautiful anywhere in the world than this beautiful area. And it's not surprising that people are keen to come here to admire the landscape's beauty. It's very special. And there is a warm welcome for them. We're proud of what we have here, and we're glad to share it with the world as well. This area has special features and qualities, as well as the landscape's beauty. We have unique culture and our own language, of course. And for the future, we need to ensure that the identity of the language and the culture is safeguarded, not only for today, but for the generations of the future as well. Following the pandemic, we saw the effect of the visiting economy on our environment and on our infrastructure and the services in the area. And although we started on this journey before the pandemic, it did confirm that we did need to look at the visiting economy, and I am confident that this plan will recognise and note any matters and any opportunities that will be raised in the future. The major difference with this plan, probably in comparison with any plan in the past, is that we're giving priority to conserving and preserving the community's language and culture, and these are priorities that have been recognised in this plan. We did during the discussions that we had, we did have information about key research areas and key statistics on a regional, international and national, regional and local level, and we had several sessions in order to inspire us in the company of the Professor Terry Stevens, and we looked at examples of sustainable tourism across the world. We looked at Slovenia, Denmark and the USA as well, and there's a lot that we need to learn from what's happening in other areas across the world. Are the slides actually working? He was just concerned to as to whether or not the slides were working for the people on Zoom anyway. So this is a step along the journey, and through this plan we are hoping to creating a visitor economy just for the benefits of the environment, people, and the culture of Gwynedd and Eryri. The plan recognizes 3 principles in order to ensure sustainability in the future. First of all, celebrating, respecting and protecting our community's language, culture and heritage. Secondly, maintaining and respecting our environment. And thirdly, ensuring that the community of Gwynedd and Eryri get more advantages than disadvantages. For those of you who are attending in the room, I hope you've had a chance to enjoy the cup of tea or coffee that you've had from Truck Gwynedd this morning. This truck is a fine example of sustainable tourism because Gwynedd and Lauren are a part of the cricket community and have rooted the business on things that are local and important to them. Coffee has been roasted locally. It's Poblado coffee. The takeaway cups can be recycled with household waste. Cakes are made by them and using local ingredients. And of course, they provide a bilingual service, which is a valuable service to local residents as well as visitors to the area. And there are a number of fine examples of excellent practice already here. And during the process of developing this plan, like I said, we had inputs from many others from around the world as well. So what do we actually want to achieve? We want a joint response to get the best benefits for our communities, businesses and special qualities for future visitors. And can I just emphasize jointly there? It's not us who is actually delivering this plan on our own. It's really important that the industry as well is engaged in it and our communities as well. We're working on a new way to measure the impact of tourism and monitoring and managing impact will be influencing other policies. We will be working strategically and in a coordinated manner in order to access funding opportunities, and we will be working towards a balanced and sustainable future by working together. And talking of which, it is my pleasure to introduce Michael Bewick. I don't think he's here in the room. He has been here for a cup of coffee, but he's gone back to work now. But I do believe that we do have a video and a message from Michael Bewick, who is the chair of the North Wales Tourism Forum. Thank you. Just getting in touch with IT so that we can get the audio and the video that's being shown. We'll move on to Emyr in the meantime, and then we'll sort out the videos later. I've brought the long spectacles with me today. I can't see my script properly. Good morning, everybody. Thanks to Devrik. And I was going to thank Michael as well for his speech, but I'm sure we will be hearing him later on. It is a pleasure to work in partnership with a number of organisations and people across the area on such an important issue as this. This plan is the fruit of many years of discussion and joint planning, and we have consulted widely with elected members, communities, businesses and other key partners in developing it. And you must remember that businesses is crucial to this plan. In adopting these principles, we will need to establish new procedures for action and delivery, and I'll try to explain a bit about those arrangements. In order to facilitate this, the Council and the National Park have signed a memorandum of understanding on 26th of November 2021, nearly 2 years since then actually. So we've had a look at a lot of issues before we brought this before you today. The role of this partnership today is to agree on arrangements and structures and for more collaboration between the two organisations, establishing arrangements for collaboration with wider partners, develop action plans, and the development of appropriate measuring tools, and also sharing good practice. This plan is relevant to the Gwynedd Council area and the Eryri National Park Authority area, including areas outside of Eryri. And we are discussing with Conwy for a council area, and they are in the process of looking at the principles relating to the plan. I thought there were going to be slides as well, never mind. This plan cannot be implemented alone. We have to have deliver it in partnership, and we're dependent on new partnerships in this case in order to realise the vision. One of the first actions will be the establishment of the Gwynedd and Eryri Tourism Economy Partnership. It is a bit of a mouthful, but like you said, Devrik, and it brings along partners and brings them together for the first time to formally discuss this area for the future. This started via a task and finish group, and we're very grateful to those who have taken part in that and scrutinised and shaped the strategic plan as it appears today. There has been a lot of interest shown from all sectors across the area in this work, and the partnership will adopt the formal terms of reference, and it's expected that it will have a central role in advising the steering board and the implementation group in monitoring and implementing this plan and that action plan. The new structure includes a steering board, the Sustainable Economy for Gwynedd and Eryri. There will be political representation from both organisations in order to set the strategic direction, but there will be a representation from the partnership itself sitting on the steering board as well. There will also be an implementation group which will make sure that the actual actions happen on the ground. There are several actions that have already been implemented, and the partnership is responding to discussions in developing the plan, and you can see examples of this in the case study that you've seen. One of the main responsibilities of the partnership is to agree on an action plan that aligns with the strategic plan itself. The objective of the action plan will be to respond to the needs of the area of Gwynedd and the National Park, the communities, businesses, and the research that has been considered. Devrik referred to the fact that we were involved with research work in Slovenia, and Eryri has been twinned with Triglav in Slovenia, so we have good contacts there. This will go hand in hand with a strategic overview and interview with the 13 area regeneration plans and the park management plan, and will cross over several strategic areas. The strategic document will be a live document, and it will be reviewed every year. From this slide, you can see the strategic actions that will be implemented which will be to establish the partnership, approve an action plan, establish those measurements, and a lot of thinking has to go into this because there's a lot of data involved and out there in the world, and we need to ensure that we use the right data to make a difference. We need to establish the leaders within the communities, influence partners' policies, and identify funding priorities. And on that funding bullet point there, we know that it's hard times at the moment, not only in the public sector, but in the private sector as well. But I'm sure that we will be implementing and delivering across all of these areas. We also will have to make sure that the planning, destination management, environmental management, training and skills, regeneration, business support, events, etc., adds value by changing the emphasis of activities or policies. We are confident that the strategic plan and the priority action plan will open doors to funding opportunities for the UK and Welsh governments. We've seen the blessings of some direct money coming from London, and the fact that we now have a strategy will be important in that sense. During our discussions and consultation in developing this plan, the issue of tourism levy was raised as a possible means. Some people are confident and some people not as sure, but we are confident that what we've established here will be an inclusive way of noting which projects and priorities are important to this area. We are looking forward to continue to working as authorities together in collaboration, but with our key partners across the community, private and public sectors, so that we can all deliver our objectives. It's extremely important to reiterate that partnerships are all important in delivering this. So thank you for listening. I haven't had my coffee yet, so hopefully I'll get my coffee now. So now we over to Michael Bewick again now. We'll give the video a go, see if it works.
Michael Bewick. I have the enormous privilege of managing 2,000 acres of land here at Lleckwith, just outside Blaen Festiniog, a place where we host Zip World and Antistiniog, as well as Northern Welsh quarries, and managing our own hotel and glamping sites. As well as that, we have 2 hydro-generating stations, which means that the entire site is self-sufficient in energy. Managing a business that has existed for 180 years in a symbiotic relationship with our community, with both dependent on each other, means that we are very aware of the importance of business and community working together and understanding each other if all are to be prosperous and have good well-being. As chair of the North Wales Regional Tourism Forum, which brings together Welsh Government, local authorities, third and private sectors, I saw the negative impact on our communities of mass tourism during the pandemic period. It brought into sharp relief the need to renew the social contract between tourism businesses and communities if we are all to succeed. As chair of the Benefiting from the World Heritage Group, I know only too well the reason we worked so hard to achieve the inscription wasn't to preserve a landscaping aspect, but to ensure that development was appropriate, to ensure that we attract visitors who are interested in and sympathetic to the language and unique and exceptional culture that is embodied in our communities. And so it is because it pulls all these threads together that I commend so wholeheartedly the innovative work that has been done by Cyngor Gwynedd and Gwynedd and Eryri in developing this sustainable tourism strategy, creating a real opportunity for all to work together to ensure that tourism in the future is both of the highest standard and something that can sustain our communities into the future. Diolch yn fawr.
O'r diwedd, diolch yn fawr iawn Angela am sortio'r broblemau
Thank you
technegol.
very much for sorting those technical issues out, Angela. So just like to welcome the Professor Terry Stevens now. David referred to him earlier on. He's played a very important role in leading us and steering us through this work, researching exactly what sustainable tourism is on an international basis, who has been doing brilliant work out there that we can learn from. Unfortunately, Terry is not able to join us in person, but I'm glad that Terry will be with us on the screen, and that's why it's crucial that we did get the audio to work. Hopefully, Angela, we can see him and that the technology will work for us now.
Helo, bore da, diolch yn fawr Sioned. Ti'n gallu clywed fi?
Yndan ta, da ni'n gallu clywed. Yndan. Os ydych chdi?
Iawn, os posib ni'n mynd nôl I slaid gynta. Bore da, mae'n drwg da fi, dwi ddim
Good
yn gallu
morning. I'm sorry I can't join you
ymuno chi bore yma
this morning
yn Plas
in
Tanabwch.
Plas Tanabwch.
Ond what I would like to do is give an overview of where I think community-focused tourism is going, and to reinforce all the comments that both Dyfrig and Emir have said at the start. So next slide, please. I'm showing this because this is a comment made in the 1985-86 Committee for Welsh Affairs Review of Tourism in Wales. And what it reflects, I think, is the fact that, very little has actually changed over the last 40 years. And Lord David Wigley, who I think is in the audience today, ended up having to write a minority report to stress the importance of this idea of balance in the sustainable approach to tourism development. But just look at what was said in this report, and underpinned by the comments of David at the time, that Wales must be seen as a caring society where tourism is regarded as a resource industry, where landscape, land care and language planning are actually valid tourism policies, where culture is seen not as a commodity, but rather as a community asset and a tourism strength, where tourism statistics are not papering over structural concerns. And encapsulated in that paragraph are all the things we need to take on board now for the future of sustainable tourism, with a community focused in Gwynedd and in Eryri. Next slide, please. And what COVID did, interesting phrase I heard yesterday, was that a number of people in the tourism industry are calling the period of COVID as the great interruption. But what COVID did was, in terms of destination and the job to be done in destination management, it exposed the sort of silliness of slogans and branding. And what it did during COVID was to amplify the importance of the reputation that a community or a destination has, and the way in which that community behaves to its residents and to its visitors by doing good things for the right reasons, or right things for the good reasons, has become essentially the driving point of the way in which we need to think about the development of tourism in rural areas, in rural Wales, in Gwynedd and in Eryri. Next slide, please. And I think we can all be optimistic. Tomorrow's tourists and residents care. They care about the environment, they care about language, they care about culture. And from a visitor point of view, increasingly, the tourists of the future will be visiting the places they know care about the things they care about. So we're likely to see this joining of the motivation of tourists seeking out the destinations that are offering the things that they care about, matches up with their lifestyle expectations and their motivations. And that's a really good opportunity for your area to align yourself to the tourists that want to be visiting you. And that's about inviting those people, and it's about managing them when they come. Next slide, please. And what this is doing, and there's no need to, look at this model in great detail, but what it's doing is saying that we're shifting the balance in tourism away from, measures of volume and value and how much product is developed to a model which says we need to prioritize reputation management, capacity building of our communities, and then the delivery of product and experiences to meet the requirements of the new markets. Next slide, please. Now, this was happening before COVID, but as a company, we've been monitoring a number of new principles that have been emerging in the way community-focused tourism development is beginning to emerge. Next slide, please. And these principles are pretty obvious, but I think the more we recognize them and the more we adhere to them, the stronger will be the development plans that we put in place to manage tourism. So the first point is recognition. We all need to recognize the importance of tourism to the regional and local and rural economies and to communities. Behind that, it's about building relationships. Michael referred to this in his video, the building of relationships vertically and horizontally, ensuring that there's a shared vision and a strategy for tourism based upon common trust and common values. The achievement of that comes from the fact that tourism has to be increasingly relevant. It's a pretty obvious statement to make, but we need products, experiences, and destinations that marry up to the interests and needs of the emerging markets and the interests and needs of the host communities. There has to be a shared responsibility for the development of sustainable tourism in an empathetic, sensitive, and responsible way, a way that embraces environment, social cultural interests of the tourists, and the capacity of the host community. And finally, respect. Respect for all voices, for all interests, and respect for the well-being of all parties, including the host community, the business community, and of course, the tourism. So 5 Rs: recognition, relationships, relevance, responsibility, and respect. Next, please. So I think we're on the cusp of a new renaissance in the way we look at tourism and its development, especially in sensitive rural areas. And you in Gwynedd and Eryri have the opportunity to be the pioneers of that new renaissance. And it's driven by the fact that there is an increasing recognition that tourism management needs to be devolved to the points of consumption, to the local communities. It's about driving and managing your own agenda. Next slide. So what's the job to be done? Next slide. And as both the speakers before have said, it's about answering the question, how do we want to measure success in the future? But in terms of the job to be done, we've looked at over 200 destinations globally, and we've measured the competency of the bodies responsible for managing those destinations. Next slide. And if we have a look at the patterns that emerge from these destinations we've looked at. Can you go back, please? There we are. So This is a sample of the destinations we've looked at using this competency model. And it will be very obvious to you in the audience that all the destinations we looked at go up in the same place and go down in the same place. So even the best managed destinations in the world do the same things badly as the destinations that are not doing so well. So for me, it's delving into that data and saying, what is it that destinations collectively around the world, even the best in the world, are not doing particularly well? Because if we can improve the things they're not doing well, we're actually going to improve the overall situation. So the job to be done is found in what is causing the dips in each of these graphs. Next slide, please. So when we analyze this, and I think this is really important for both, Cyngor Gwynedd and Parc Cenedlaethol Eryri, is that these are the areas perhaps we need to concentrate on. First of all, the need to improve the quality of the visitor experience and make those experiences relevant and synergistic to the experiences that are only to be found in the destinations and communities. The second thing which has to be improved is the investment in community assets and community asset management. The third thing that all those destinations did badly and can improve on is about the creation and nurturing of new networks of collaboration. We're entering a period where codependency and co-collaboration is going to be critical for sustainable community tourism development. You have to engage more with hybrid thinkers and encourage innovation. There needs to be an investment in people, both their skills and their talent and their capacity. And as Emir said, the urgency of aligning policy and planning to ensure that all the resources are delivered in a way that is integrated and joined up. Next slide, please. One of the key areas I noted there was the importance of building capacity with local people. And during the process of getting where you are today, we looked at Park City in Utah. And if you want a model for addressing that key aspect of building community capacity, then the leadership program in Park City is the model to follow. It's been running for nearly 30 years, and every year, 80 people from that community go on a leadership program. I think that's one of the key elements that you need to address in taking your plans forward. Next slide, please. And tourism taxes, huge debate that you're all aware of. I'll put my hand up and say I am all for tourism taxes and tourism levies, but only when they're used to develop community tourism in the way in which the plans at the destination level require additional funding. So tourism taxes designed to support local plans and local communities is fundamentally important, and it is the model which is most successful around the world. And again, in our review of best practice that we've undertaken over the past few years, we looked at what was happening in Jackson Hole in Wyoming. And that is a model which I hugely urge you to look at for taking forward for Gwynedd. So tourism taxes, yes, but by design for a purpose to support communities and destination management. Next slide. So here's my final slide, and it's a challenge for you, is that, as Dyfrig and Emmy have said, we've been looking at this plan for 3-4 years. Precious time is slipping away. And in order to move forward, I think we all have to be much more bolder than we are today. And here's some words from a song from the 60s. But it says it all. Will time make man more wise? Hope so. Now the trees are almost green, you know, we're recovering, we're out of the COVID big interruption. When time and tides have been, will I, will you, will Gwynedd, will Eryri be bolder than you are today in order to shape the new vision for community-focused tourism development in your area? Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Terry.
Thank you very much, Terry. There's a lot of food for thought there, and I'm sure we'll return to that in discussion later on. And we do have a video clip from Kerry Kennington. I think he's in the audience somewhere. This is a video clip that we have for, we're hoping that the audio will be okay. Hi, I'm Kelly Kennington. I'm from Gwynedd and Eryri, which is just up the road. We've been thinking about sustainable tourism development for the past 10 years, really. The whole idea of Anterstiniog was to take advantage of the economy that was developing in our communities using the language heritage and to our own advantage. And by now, we've been using funding from visitors in order to buy assets on the high street. So we've been able to take advantage of that. The way in which the strategy is being developed. We have been involved with this since for the past 10 years, but it's great to see that the Park and Gwynedd Council are coming together with communities to ensure that it's developed in a sustainable way for the benefit of our communities. The strategy is a great, this is a great opportunity, and of course we need to implement it jointly. Thank you very much, Kerry. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to have a chat with Kerry later on. Now I would like to invite somebody who has contributed a lot to our work over the years, chairing the board for the World Heritage Board. Lord Dyfed Wickley will just say a few words now as well. Thank you very much, Sioned. Good morning, everybody. I'm very glad to see the room full today. And you refer to Terry, like Terry referred to the existence of this strategy before then. Before I went into the Senedd, one of the books that I had read before I went into the Senedd was this, Tourism, Blessing or Blight, by George Young. I had never heard of him before, and I was quite shocked when I quoted from this book in the House of Commons. A tall friend of mine from the Tories said at the end, "Thank you very much for quoting from my book." I didn't realise that he was actually in the room and he was an MP. But what's interesting in this book is that a lot of the problems that are being faced in our communities here in Gwynedd and that we are dealing with then in this meeting are problems that have been faced in other places, yes, in Wales, in England, in Cornwall, in the Lake District, and it was recognised as problems back in the day in the 70s. The possibility of a tourism levy was raised by the Tory George Young in his book because of the need to ensure that there are sufficient resources available in order to promote and improve the visitor experience and also to alleviate the burden that falls on the local communities so that local people feel positive towards tourism and don't feel that it's a burden on them. I think that's the essence of what we're discussing today, and it's something that comes up around the world. I'm heavily involved with Slovenia. I'm involved with them in London as well, and their experience of tourism. They have less than 2 million people in Slovenia, and they're going through similar experiences. but they have a positive attitude towards it. And I think that's the most important element from this meeting and from the discussions that have happened over a while that have led to this today, that we have a positive attitude towards tourism, that we see, because we can see people as important as Gwynedd Council and Eryri National Park. I'd like to congratulate you on the collaboration, because they are the same challenges within and outside the park, and we need to steer in this direction. Terry Stevens, I was glad to hear Terry. It was great to see him, and he referred to a report that we were working on on Welsh matters. Would you believe, back in the 80s, 1987 in fact, and one of the things included in the report on Eryri that Terry referred to, and I will quote from it, and it's only in English because they were only published in English back then. So from the report,
the aims of tourism can be encapsulated in 4 objectives, to ensure that the development of tourism takes place in harmony with other economic, social and cultural objectives and in accordance with the wishes of local communities. Wel, dyna beth ni'n
well, there you
sôn
have it. That's what we're referring to here, and it is possible for tourism to live side by side with the success of other elements in our communities. What was raised in the work that we undertook with the slate industry and the application that we submitted in order to get worldwide recognition for the slate industry communities. And one of the things that I was hoping to see as a result of that, and one of our challenges, was to have more and more international visitors coming here, not just depending on visitors from England. From the international visitors that come to the UK, less than 2% of those come to Wales. Why is that? Why are we in that situation? We have to ensure that our voices are being heard, and the UK government are not willing to give it the due attention it deserves, then the Welsh government have to raise their voice in order to get people to come here. And the advantage of getting people from abroad here is they're not likely to settle in our communities and buy our houses. They come here with a real interest in languages and cultures because they're coming from an international context. They came here to stay for a period of time. They're not bringing their own sandwiches and not spending any money. They are staying in hotels and bring benefits to our communities economically. And they go home and they talk about Wales when they go home, about the experiences they had. I took visitors from the USA just a week before last around Dorothea Quarry, around the public footpath there. They were absolutely amazed. When I had a message back from America, they said that that was the highlight of their visitor, which I went to walk around Dorothea and Salazar. We already have these treasures that we can exhibit and praise and promote, and we need to do so much more that these experiences are available and people are safe and appreciate. We know what's possible in each of the 6 destinations that we have for the industry. And the last thing I'd like to refer to is we need to be building the skills and the confidence within our own workforce. Nobody should say that it is impossible to have a Welsh workforce in the tourism sector. You only have to go to Portmeirion to see that that is possible. And so it is possible for every business in every tourism sector to be able to do that. But we need collaboration between the public sectors, the schools, the colleges, and so on, and the communities, so that the young people get the opportunities. We want young people to be glad of their country, their language and their communities, and willing to share that with people who visit, and through that ensure that they and their families are the future and a sustainable future for the communities. So the basic message is, yes, we need collaboration, but yes, we need to, and we can harness tourism for the benefit of our own communities, our language and culture, and the future of Wales as a country. Thank you very much.
Well, tough act to follow there.
A pact to follow that, really, isn't it? But thanks to David for inspiring us, and thanks to everybody who has already spoken before me. I think we need to acknowledge and express our gratitude for all the work that has gone into getting to this point. But now, of course, this is when the real work starts, the detailed work, the agreement on a work plan, and responding to and delivering the priorities. Of course, money is important. Show me the money, in other words. So I'm very glad to announce that there will be a new fund being launched in the autumn to support this work at a community level and in our destinations as well. Although we are launching the strategic plan today and announcing a new fund, a lot of action is already happening. For example, through the Erosvan pilot scheme, creating a network of sites for motorhomes in the area, or the Eryri Ambassador and Gwynedd Ambassador scheme, which tries to arm the people of Gwynedd and Eryri with information about their unique areas. Our intention is to continue to act to achieve our vision, and we will do so in partnership with all of our stakeholders in the sector and by targeting the funding opportunities of the Welsh and British governments. Obviously, much of our work in the future will be dependent on securing funding, but by working together to agree on an action plan and finding other sources of funding, our intention is to turn the strategic plan into action to ensure that we have a balanced, sustainable and robust visitor economy for the benefit of all our communities and businesses. Our intention is that this new collaboration between Gwynedd Council, Eryri National Park, and the communities, businesses and public partners will lead to a sustainable visitor economy in the area, which gives priority to the well-being and prosperity of our communities, our environment, our language and culture. I think we now have 10 minutes for questions. If anybody in the room would like to ask any questions, if you want to put your hand up, please. I can see Dr. Young here. Did you have a question or comment to make? First of all, congratulations on this strategy. It's good to see it. Obviously, a lot of good work has already been undertaken here. A couple of comments really, and the question. On page 23 of the document, you mentioned that the value of 35 million comes into the economy. And during the next few days, are you going to tell us where that money is actually going? What's happening to it? Where does it go? Where the real benefit is financially? The element of sustainable tourism, I think there should be regeneration. Sustainability is one thing, but it's similar. But of course, we need to ask that question, which is to note that there should be advantages for the community. It's going to decide. Is it going to be a weighting that you'll be using? How will the advantages and disadvantages? What will you use as weightings? Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for the work that you do with the Eco Museum. I think that's a really good question, and it fits really well with our measurements element. And I don't know if anybody else on the panel would like to come in on that. I'd just like to respond and bring Sian into the answer with regard to the response. We're very keen to have a partnership in place within the communities because we have 3 area plans that are being developed, and we have local partnership as well in the communities themselves. And of course, people need to come forward from their communities to say what the priorities are as well, and that will be feed into the action plan itself across the whole of Gwynedd. From the figures that you referred to, I've just asked Dylan or Sian to come in on that, if you would please, so that we can have an analysis of the figures. The figures that you mentioned have been used in order to account for the number of people that visit. There's more information that contribute to the numbers that you've referred to. The information is available on the council's website and on the company that actually collects the data's website as well. What we have been doing with Terry Stevens is we've been looking at models in the countries where sustainable tourism has been rooted in the community roots of the communities, to look at alternative ways of accounting in a more balanced way in relation to data collection in order to enlighten the work as we move forward. From this team model, that's where the figures have come from. They are accounted for on an annual basis. We as a council provide input data with regard to parking, etc. We get information from attractions as well as local businesses. So it is an international model on its way of measuring, but it measures the tendency. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sian. I can see 2 hands up in the room. If I can just come to you in the second row from the back.
I'd like to ask a question about what I see as the naivety of this idea of a renaissance, and that we have a mass tourism model. Duffrig in the past has referred to not the right kind of visitor. That being said, people who bring their own sandwiches. And I'm talking about the sort of people who queue for 2 hours to get a photo at the top of Snowdon. They're not there because they're mountaineers, they love the mountains, they love the culture. They're there because there's a mass tourism, they've got to get their picture. And that is a large bulk of tourists. And when we talk about attracting the right kind of tourists, how do you distinguish between the right kind of tourists and the wrong kind of tourists? Because mass tourism is a fact, and I hate to be insulting to the great British public, but no one loses money by underestimating what are the real interests of mass tourism, the bucket and spade brigade. And we have to address that. We can't just ignore them and say we don't want you. If anyone has a thought on that.
We'll take the next question and then we'll answer both questions at the same time. Thank you. One of the statistics that are really important is the work that Oxford Economics undertake looking at tourism across the world. And what they're looking at is the extraction rates that tourism is involved with. To what rate corporate tourism takes out money from areas. We don't have that information, well, not strongly enough as far as Wales is concerned. From the little work that we do know about, it's undertaken by Bangor several years ago looking at Ynys Môn, and what showed was the rate at which external corporates extract money out of Wales. What we need to know really is how much income. Well, I did work in Caerleam in Ireland in Galway, and 2 questions that they asked regarding tourism in there, on how much income is going to be and where is that income going, and we don't have information about that, and that's key in the fact that in the way that Welsh Government is going to support tourism. Are we going to have 8 million going to Snowdonia when it was obvious to everybody that it didn't make any sense environmentally, economically, or socially either? There's a major question that needs to be asked in relation to where does tourism money go? If you are in earnest that the communities actually get it, then those are basic questions regarding how that income needs to be changed so that that money comes into the communities, and as a result that work and employment is different in those communities. Should we refuse giving public money to employers that put employees on 0 hours contracts, for example? That would change these things dramatically for our communities. Thank you very much for those 2 comments. I'll just transfer to Sioned to respond to that. I'll just make a start and I'll bring others into this as well. Just to make a comment, just in case we're misleading you, we're not going to be choosing to respond to that first question. We're not going to be choosing which type of visitor we're getting. What we're saying is that we want to be clear what we're targeting, where we want our resources to go. And that's why we'll be targeting the type of visitor. That's what the leader was referring to. When we have a specific campaign to target a visitor, he comes here, that campaign will target a specific type of visitor rather than the general visitor, shall we say, and that's the difference. Shall you refer to several questions there, and definitely we need more work. Sian referred to STEAM earlier on. It's being used to measure tendencies over a period of time, but we are aware that yes, it's a model that is recognized internationally, but it doesn't go down to a sophisticated level to be able to measure exactly where the expenditure is going, and we do need to be able to measure the value of tourism for communities, but that's a part of the work that we're hoping to be able to do. Note new measurements and recognize them, and to reflect what we're trying to deliver rather than depend on the STEAM. And that's what we have in mind at the moment, but as we progress, we're hoping to move away from that model. I don't know if Terry is still online, but hopefully we could ask Terry to come in to make a comment or observation on the 2 points that have been raised. Terry?
I'll try. It was really difficult to hear the questions. So if I talk rather more generically about the whole issue of measuring and monitoring, I think what we really need to get down to is measuring the things that matter and being more forensic about, the way in which money is spent by tourists, and indeed that really important point I did hear, which was about, the extraction. There were some statistics out recently which said that locally owned restaurants inject something like, or allow the community to retain something like 80% of the spending that's going on, whereas the chain restaurants extract about 70%. So, the point is well made, but the critical thing is that over the next 10 years, we need to be able to develop the appropriate measures that are measuring the things that are genuinely important. And I will say the things that you can control. Most of the things that STEAM monitor are things that are out with your control. You weather conditions, international incidents, or changes in aircraft routes and so on, things you cannot control. So constantly relying on measures of value and volume at that generic level are not necessarily very helpful to you. So it's about getting deep into what matters and identifying the things that matter and then measuring them.
Yeah, dyna ni. diolch i chi gyd am eich cwestiynau ac am ddod heddiw yma. Diolch.
Thank you all for your questions and thanks to everybody who have been involved with the arrangements today. You're welcome to stay behind and enjoy the refreshments, light refreshments of local produce that will be in the reception here in the stables. And perhaps you'd like to continue your discussions before you leave. Thank you very much.